Today we have a fabulous topic is AI that moves the loans. And we're going to talk about assistants and also agents. And I have the perfect person, Paul Wyner, I've known forever. He's really one of the smartest fellows in mortgage banking. He's Chief Solutions Officer for Revolution Mortgage Company. Prior to that, he started out at Citibank and InterFirst and ABN AMRO. Hey, Paul, so glad to see you. This is such an important topic that I'm excited to really hear your, view of it because you've been in the industry as long as I have, and that's certainly we've seen a lot. So let's do the big picture about AI, the biggest buzzword in the industry, and kind of give it the overview before we talk about the agent and we're talking about the assistants and all of that, what it means.
Perfect. And it's always great to have spirited conversations with you. So I'm excited about the topic. I've spent the last 4 years digging into this topic. So let's talk about just real quickly the evolution. So way back in the day, there was optical character recognition. Capsilon has a product, Doc Velocity. I think Flagstar had that, which was, a scanning technology. That was the beginning of AI. And then RPA, robotic process automation, chatbots, the next iteration. So it keeps moving and it keeps growing. So do you remember way back in the day when AUS came out?
Yeah.
Every underwriter in the country, oh my God, I'm being replaced. I'm going to lose my job. AI's taking over. They didn't know it was AI at the time. But guess what? It is. AUS was machine learning, it was AI, and it did nothing except boost up how important the underwriters were. And then from there, have you heard of ChatGPT?
Yes.
That was the next, big wow moment, generative AI, right? And so generative AI is, I would love people to start there in terms of just understanding what AI is capable of. Now, generative AI, it generates a product. You type in a prompt, it gives you whatever you're looking for, whether it's a picture, whether it's
Mhm.
video, doesn't matter, text. And so that's where I think a lot of people aspire to be there.
Mhm.
And then there's some misnomers about, well, I'm going to take all of Fannie's guidelines, I'm going to digest it into Chat GPT, and now I have an AI platform. And I kid you not, this is being done.
Yes. Hmm.
And forget that word hallucinate. So I don't know if the listeners all understand, but Chat makes mistakes. So does Copilot, so does Gemini,
Yeah.
on and on. And so you got to be really careful. From there, the next evolution was and is agentic, and we can start and land on an agentic platform, agents, AI agents, and how they work.
Well, that's a great I think that's a great overview, and certainly let's kind of jump into that part. The agent and the assistant. What does that all mean, and how does that apply to lenders? And do you see it as a competitive advantage, or just the price of doing business? Or talk about all of those topics.
Okay,
I,
in no particular order, all of
yeah.
those topics. So, like I said, we're at a crossroads right now.
Hmm.
Mortgage companies are trying to figure out where they need to play in what space. And the agentic space, there are vendors out there that do this. They promise a lot, they don't deliver a lot. That's, neither here nor there. But at the end of the day, you need to do something. So doing something is infinitesimally better than doing nothing. And so when you get into workflow automation, what an agentic AI can do, think about an orchestra and think about, the conductor. And that's kind of agentic. It orchestrates workflows, assigns and completes tasks for you. Multiple agents do multiple tasks. It's a
Hmm.
very different way of looking at your manufacturing process. And so when you said assistance, so assistance can mean two things. In AI, assistance usually refers to people, humans. Humans, they
Yeah.
call it humans in the loop, which
Hmm.
means a human is constantly inspecting and a human on the loop. And if it's on the loop, the human's looking
Hmm.
down for what your AI should do, which is bubble up exceptions and escalations, not the work. So AI should really be thought of in terms of augmenting your workflow. It's not replacing people, it's augmenting a lot of the work they do.
So, how would you, from a lender standpoint, and I know you've been involved with this topic, so if you're making baby steps, and I think that tied together with what you said before in the overview, in the baby step world, what is it that they need to be thinking about, and what is it that is really realistically from a functionality standpoint?
Wow, that is a great question. What they should be thinking about is vastly
Right,
different than what they are thinking about. And so I think honestly, the first step of this is to eliminate the fear factor. This is AI is not something to be afraid of, and it's not something, oh my God, you hear the news, oh my job replay job. This industry is so highly regulated, and there is always going to be a need for humans.
right,
As much as I'd like to say, the company I work for has one of the greatest solutions ever, at present, it does not replace human intelligence. We need people, we need humans, we need humans to work through, logic through complex deals. AI is there to help it.
So, is it a fair statement? And you and I have talked about this topic a lot. So, from it does augment, but don't you need to have the right type of people that know how to actually direct it? That's what that comes down to the famous issue. Yeah, we're not going to lose people, but we're going to lose people that don't adapt. I mean, that's how I would see it.
Wow, what a great setup. Thank you for that. So true. And it's not like you need to be a coder to,
Yes.
a coder level to understand AI in your world. But what you can't do is you can't put your head in the sand and hope that, well, maybe we'll dodge this particular bullet. You need to have at least a cursory understanding. So that's why I started with chat.
Hmm.
It could be Copilot, it could be any of them, right?
Sure. Hmm.
That at least gives you an understanding, because literally in some of those workflows, you're using a combination of you're typing in a command. In this
Right.
case, we're talking about agents, right? Agents, I need you to do this. And if this comes back, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. So if you don't even have a cursory understanding of prompting, which is
Right.
really the key to being able to have good output, is to have good input, right? So that is the one constant that everybody talks about this in the industry and in the AI world, and that literally is, you have to adopt a mindset that this is here to help. And at the end of the day, that really is what it does. And you are absolutely correct. If you do not embrace, and companies don't embrace this,
Yeah.
it's going to be lights out. And that's, I think, the biggest difference is historically, depending on, are you using a scanning technology? If you went
Hmm.
from fax to digital,
Yeah.
you didn't get left behind because you were a slow adopter. But AI is moving so incredibly fast. I I was looking at old chat history,
Hmm.
and I looked at AI, and this was in 2023. And
Yeah.
I was looking at what was, this is state of the art, and it's like, psh, it's gone. All of that cutting edge technology has already been replaced.
Right.
So this is not for the weak of heart. You've got to jump in, and you have got to embrace it, and it will do so much of that work for you.
So when you think about it, and I do find this is what's so fabulous about it, is that it's actually, if you're only using it once in a while, let's say at the origination side or any of those parts, if you use it once in a while, you're not using it enough for it to actually learn from you, is essentially what's going on. And I do find it interesting that the originators don't really recognize that. It's not a once in a while. Oh, I think I'll do, as one of the originators says, I'll talk to Mr. Chat.
Awesome. And I hope Mr. Chat gives an honest answer, because Mr. Chat has a tendency to be caught
He will.
lying
Yeah.
now and
Well,
again, right?
Yeah, yeah. What?
So,
Right.
I mean, that's a great point. So it is, you're really getting to adoption, and there are use cases that there are dozens and dozens of them out there, and you can't play at this. You're either
Yes,
in
that's what
or you're out, right? And so
hmm
it was interesting because you brought up something that is so far, I mean, literally cutting edge. You were talking about AI understanding the loan officer or the processor. I'm curious where I'm blown away that you're identifying that, because that is like almost the secret sauce at this point. So why that question? It's a fascinating one for me, and I have an answer.
Well, talk about it, and I'll share you my thoughts. So talk about what you think about it. And I certainly don't see they leave it up to the individual, and I don't think that's a good corporate strategy. So
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to take this one extra, take it to here. And what you're saying is true. It's an all in or all out
correct.
strategy. And it is a top down strategy. So if that CEO or that C-suite person is not kind of pushing down, this needs to be done. The biggest killer of automation is, it's another A word, adoption. And that's it right there. If you don't adopt, you can have the slickest, coolest platform in
Right.
the world. But if you don't get it used, that was just a really, really expensive lesson to be learned. So let's talk about understanding behavior. So one of the companies that my company has partnered with, they are that advanced in their operating system, their AI. We'll get into, we'll make it confusing because we talked about assistants. And so in this context, everybody from a loan officer, processor, underwriter have assistants, AI assistants. And these assistants start understanding you, your cadence, what you
Right.
do. So if
Correct.
if Pat Sherlock has an assistant, and Pat, you do email, from 7 to 8 in the morning, and then from 9 to 10, your prospect, whatever you're doing, it starts to recognize you and your
Correct.
patterns. And so on a day you just don't really feel like doing my emails at 7 or 8 this morning, your assistant's going to kind of ping you and say, hey, what about our emails? Would you like me to take over this for you? Would you like me to craft the email? You can look at it. Tell me if you like it. I'll take that off your plate. I'll do your emails for you from 7 to 8 every morning. That frees up your time to do in mortgage space, higher value activities, right? Whether
Right.
it's prospecting, so the follow up and chasing documents and
All that.
things like that, is that's not good use of anybody's time when you can automate that with
hmm
AI. So,
So Paul, talk about when you're, and we'll have to have you come back and we'll talk about it also, move to that next topic, but talk about the impact and the speed that this is going at, that it has to impact the organization setup of the world of the mortgage lender. I mean, I don't think there's any question about that because it's certainly having impact on talent side, all of that, the customer interaction side, and at some point, even the voice recognition side is really moving quickly. So talk about, I know this is a lot, but talk about in the big picture, what speed do you see this is going at? So you were talking about using it back in 23, which is the case I did too. And so I just see, as you see, how quickly it's moved. It's a lot faster than people think.
oh yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate goal is to get to going to be confusing. AGI, general artificial intelligence, which is thinking, reasoning, things like
Right,
that. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. So, so you start with an agentic platform, and there's not a lot of people in this space. What makes this space complicated is who's in the space. Google and Microsoft and companies,
right,
these massive tech companies. There's one fatal flaw. they're not mortgage people. And
Right.
so the first thing is you've got to be very cognizant of who you're partnering with. And you ideally want a partner that understands the mortgage space, right?
Hmm.
And so you can develop, the coolest AI, but if it doesn't follow the mortgage guardrails and governance and things like that, it can't be used in our space. So there's two sides of this: the industry growing, and then the mortgage side growing. So on the mortgage side, after agentic will come, well, and we can talk about this next time. We can talk about interpretive, and that's AI being able to interpret the world around itself. And
Hmm.
then when you really get there, it's self-improving multi-agent platforms. And what I mean by that is these agents learn and adopt on their own. There's governance. So anything that
Right.
is deployed in our world of mortgage banking, you have got to have governance and compliance. But these agents can go out and do multiple tasks. So when you talk about use cases and you have these agents that can pre-underwrite a file
Hmm.
in real time, every document that comes in, they're identifying their, if it's income, things like that, it's doing the calculations. You're giving an underwriter a pre-approved file that all they need to do is, yep, looks good, boom, done. So your cycle times improve dramatically. You can apply a use case to a loan officer, to anywhere along the manufacturing process. So it depends. Do you want to highlight the front end? Do you want to highlight the, underwriting, post close? There's a time and place for all of it. And when you're lucky enough, and our company was to find a solution that is an enterprise end-to-end solution, that's nirvana. That's next
Right.
level.
Hmm.
And as far as I know, maybe one, two companies have achieved that. And it's massive capital expenditures for
Hmm.
the side that's bringing in the AI. So,
So, yeah, I mean, you're making all fabulous points, and it really does lend itself that realistically, the effort to adapt it is going to be on the back office side. I mean, I think that seems easier to do. That seems obviously still paper intensive and people intensive. Whereas I think the advantages will be on the front side. And so, I mean, I think that the basics are going to be on the back side. Is that how you kind of see it?
um, I I see. Well, I sit in a different chair. I see it end to end. There is a place for
Hmm.
it. The most noticeable, if you push it to the front. So, I mean, you're making a great point. The goal of AI is to shift left, shift to the front. So the more you can shift and get
Yeah,
done up front, it's kind of your point, the more efficient you are. And that's where huge pickups are. When you're a loan officer and you have an assistant AI agent that is doing your pre-approvals, pre-quals, chasing down trailing docs,
yeah,
communicating. You were talking about chat and being able to
sure.
mimic, human speech and things like that.
Hmm.
That's then you get into the user experience
Hmm.
improves, and the consumer experience increases, and that's the goal, is to deliver
Better
a,
experience.
a better experience ultimately for the consumer or the broker, depending on who your audience is.
Well, I had a conversation with an executive yesterday, and this is what I think's happened to the world of mortgage lending. And of course, what's being said is he was talking about, he wishes salespeople would learn the guidelines. In other words, do the administrative things better. And I think that we obviously have pushed down a lot of that to the loan officer, which is counter to what the loan officer really should be about. And so I see this really changing that whole dynamic and worrying about whether they know whether they put the paperwork together seems like, okay, we need to rethink what do we want a salesperson to do. Are you seeing those types of conversations? Because I think so many times, as you said, they look at the back office oh, let's get the guidelines up and then they can look at that. I mean, that's what they're doing. And I'm just thinking, well,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well, I'll ask the question in a different. I'm gonna. So the question would be, what's the highest and best use
yeah,
of loan officer process? Loan officer we're talking about. What is the best use of their
right.
time? Is it prospecting, building relationships, driving
Mm-hmm,
originations, or is it doing administrative work?
mm-hmm, right.
And it's counterintuitive because really top salespeople, they really want and embrace the relationships that they build. They
Sure.
don't need to be in the weeds collecting a trailing doc or asking for that updated pay stub. That's the huge lift AI can do,
Right.
all that administrative grunt work.
Well, we could talk about this. I got to have you back soon because I'm really, I think this is a fabulous topic. And so, a couple takeaways for our listeners today.
Yeah, so ultimately think about this as an ROI play, right? I mean,
Hmm.
if you have a company that's investing in this, then you want to have a good ROI, so you know the return on your investment. So when you think about it, what are we really driving towards? We're fewer touches, fewer calls, fewer emails, fewer reworks, consistency. Going out and preventing disparate lending because AI doesn't care where you live, where you
Yeah.
work, what your neighborhood looks like, right? So it is a massive enhancement to how work gets done. And so my takeaway would be for the people listening is talk to your leadership and try to get a good understanding of where they're going. Because I mean that just is so counterintuitive, that conversation where like, I wish my loan officers would learn guidelines. It's no, you wish your loan officers brought in another 3 deals a week. That's what you really
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
So
Great
that's my
point.
2 cents.
Well, they're big 2 cents for sure. So, how can people get in touch with you to talk more about this?
I can be reached at pwyner at revolutionmortgage.com or my cell phone. Feel free to call anytime, 847-226-0179.
Paul, you've been fabulous as usual, and so I'm thrilled to have you today. And I certainly want to thank you for sharing all your thoughts. They certainly, I think, are so relevant for sure. And I also want to ask our listeners to subscribe on a weekly basis to our podcast. We have wonderful people like Paul talking about important topics. So thanks so much, Paul.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Pat. Have a great day.
That's a wrap for this episode. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your team. Want more proven sales strategies? Visit patsherlock.com for expert resources, coaching, and sales training. Until next time, keep selling smarter and not harder.